Lane Kiffin was not available to the media afterward, and it's because he wasn't the head coach. I think he became the wide receivers coach. He gave head coaching title and all responsibilities to a guy that's been on his staff since the day he got here, and before that was on the staff of Matt Luke, and before that was on the staff of Hugh Freeze, and before that was on the staff of Houston Nutt. Does Derek Nix go all the way back to Ed Ogeron? I don't remember if Derek Nix was on Ed Ogeron's staff. We would have to go back and check.
Yeah.
Derek Nix has been on the Ole Miss staff for a really long time. He's coached different positions, and he is absolutely one of the finest people you will ever meet. He is just a good guy from a good family, and he comes from a family that has meant a lot to football in the state of Mississippi and has not been without his own challenges, right? He's had some health issues that he's had to deal with over the years and has just continued to just do his job. He's probably an undervalued recruiter, and his versatility in terms of coaching different positions has served him well. So Lane Kiffin decided that he was going to give Derek Nix the opportunity to be the head coach and everything that entails. Scripting the scrimmage, planning team meetings, speaking to the team the night before the game. They wanted it to be a full run-through as if they were getting ready for their first game of the year. Talking to the team in the locker room before the game, leading the team out onto the field, the whole deal. And that included meeting with the media after it was over. Lane Kiffin did talk to the media about why he had done this. He talked about the fact that there are not enough minorities that are head coaches in college football, particularly in the SEC and the Big 12. He said there's more Tony Dungy's, there's more Lovie Smiths, there's more Mike Tomlins that never get the opportunity. We're in 2023, and between the SEC and Big 12, we have no minority head coaches. It is ridiculous when we're talking about two major conferences right here in this area, and when whatever it is, 80% of our players are minority, but we have all white coaches. It's really a system that needs to be fixed. Went on to say to give someone the opportunity to speak in front of the team, to handle the media, to handle pregame meal, to handle injury reports, to get out there today to manage the kind of scrimmage, I think was really good for Derek. And he goes on to say you can't see how good somebody is until they get a chance to do it. That would be my wish out there to ADs and presidents and universities to understand that, and this is a good example. So that's the story at face value. Now, as is the case with everything, when social media grabs a story like this, like the very first response is, well, why don't you give up your job? And you get that over and over and over. There were some that pointed to the fact that Zach Arnett could be considered a minority, or I guess is considered a minority.
There's no could be considered. He's a minority.
Thank you. I think the point that Lane Kiffin was making was about black coaches. He just didn't say that. He used the term minority over and over.
When you say minority, there's a lot more minorities than just African Americans.
Yes.
There's two in the Big 12 as well. There's Kalani Sitake, and Dave Aranda is Hispanic as well.
Yeah. So, but again, that's kind of the stuff that people jumped on and used phrases like virtue signaling and whatever else. And you're welcome to feel however you want to about it. Call me crazy. Wouldn't be the first time. The one that I was curious was, how does Derek Nix feel about it? I've talked to a few people, who were either around that Friday and Saturday or know Derek or talked to Derek. And they said it really meant a lot to him. That he thought it was an incredibly kind and generous gesture from Lane Kiffin. And he took it very, very seriously. Kind of using that opportunity, using that blueprint to make it his team for that 24, 36-hour period. So feel about it however you want to, but I thought it was kind of a cool story, especially when the recipient in this story, Derek Nix, was touched by it and thought it was a great opportunity for him.
It's an important point. And the virtue signaling thing, it's kind of like a buzzword that people use now. And, although some of that statement was factually inaccurate, the point is that whether or not you agree with his sentiment, virtue signaling, at least to me, is somebody, for example, that bemoans the horrors of capitalism while tweeting from their iPad inside of a Starbucks. That is how, when you're virtue signaling, it's that. Or when you're Christine Brennan, when she wrote that the darkest day in the Big Ten's history as a conference was agreeing to play football in 2020. That's what that is. It's just empty words, pretending like you have feelings without action behind them. Lane Kiffin's a guy in a position of power.
Talking about your disdain for fossil fuels as you climb onto your private jet.
Yes, exactly. When you tell everybody else that they need to consume less while you fly across the world in private jets, when you live in New York City.
Across the world, when you fly from L.A. to San Diego.
Or L.A. to L.A. in some cases.
Yeah, it's a 2-hour drive.
One airport to the other. When you when you live in New York City and you say that the pizza places can't have their ovens anymore, that's virtue signaling to me. Lane Kiffin thinks that there is a shortage, if we're being of black coaches in college football. At least as a guy in a position of power, he acted to, if you think it's a grand gesture or a small one, at least he did something to help advance what he believes in. There's an action associated with the belief. And so when there's an action associated with a belief, I respect it. As opposed to people that scream and yell from the mountaintops, but they don't change their behavior or don't do anything about it. At least Lane Kiffin thinks, there's a problem, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give Derek Nix experience, and so when a job comes open that he possibly wants, he gets to say, I was a head coach for a day, here's what I learned, here's what I would do. He has that to point to on a resume. And that could make or break a job. At least there's an action there. And as long as there's action, regardless of how you feel about it, I think that it's a respectable thing.
Is this something that'll pick up any traction? Whether it is with minority / black coaches or just assistant coaches, period. Do you see head coaches in some scrimmage situations handing the reins over to assistants and saying, hey, I know this is what you want to do career-wise. Hey, give you a chance. Give you a little experience. No?
I don't know. I'm being honest. I'm not trying to. I just don't know. I don't know. There are some coaches that are just so locked in and hands-on that they wouldn't be willing to do that. And then there will be some who, like we're just talking about, will view it as a kind of an empty gesture. And then you'll have some coaches who will do it. So will it be a trend? I don't know.
Maybe not.
Mike Vrabel, though, kind of started this, didn't he, a couple weeks ago? Maybe you're going to see this more, especially in the preseason.
C-Spire text line, one of my favorite Southern Miss players of all time is Derek Nix. He was one of the first jerseys that I ever had. So that's very cool.